What is happening, everybody? It is Trey here. I'm joined again today by my mom, Gina, and today we're going to take a look at Queen's second album, Queen 2. We're going through the Queen's entire discography. We'll have a link down below if you want to check what we've done so far. If this is your first time stopping by, we appreciate you checking the channel out. Here at Reactions to the Classics, we take a look back at some of the most classic albums of all time and do a detailed track-by-track review of them. And just like today, it's usually the first time we've heard the record. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And if you'd like to link up with us more, we got our Facebook and Patreon down below. But all that to say, we're just going to get into these quick facts. Just as the title suggests, this is their second studio album released on Electra Records for the US and EMI in the UK, much like the debut. This, though, enjoyed some more success, went all the way up to number 5 in the UK. They recorded at Trident Studios yet again, and they actually asked David Bowie to produce.
Yeah, and this time they actually got more studio time. It wasn't the downtime. They got to actually record it during studio hours.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't lackeys in there like just trying to steal in a moment or two. So I'm sure that helped the process. And you know, that's good you mentioned that, Mom, because this record, I noticed right away, it was a lot more complex, a lot more multi-layered vocals. Even with all the musicianship behind everything, it only took them a month to record this, which I thought was impressive because it is a very complex record.
This is also described as Queen's heaviest album. It's a mix between, we've got art rock and glam rock and hard rock and some heavy metal in there, so there's a little bit of everything for everybody.
This is not a concept album, but those songs, especially on the black side, have a fantasy type theme to them. So the A side is called the white side, and then the B side is called the black side. So Queen, you know, trying to have some artistry there.
And what's interesting too, I guess, the fantasy side is all written by Freddie Mercury. So the entire black side is Freddie, and then the white side is largely Brian May.
That's right.
With the exception of the last song to end the white side, Roger Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing I do like about Queen that I've noticed is they really do get everybody involved in the process. You have, you know, Taylor gets a song again on vocals, May gets a few, and then of course Mercury. So everybody gets their moments on the record to shine a little bit, which is nice. All that to say, we're gonna get started with track 1, which is actually just an instrumental, Procession.
Yeah.
And this is like a funeral march essentially, and May just laid down the guitar, you know, multi-tracks through John Deacon's custom amp. So, you know, it kind of sets the mood of like the new musical direction they were going, and then that takes us to first song with lyrics, Father to Son.
Father to Son. And this one was enjoyable. Basically a father giving advice to his son, or almost passing the torch of the family's legacy, like the family name, the legacy he's going to leave behind.
He talked about a letter he was going to give to his son that was always going to be by his side. He has a line in there that says, "The air you breathe, I live to give you." I thought that was pretty poetic. I thought it was a good opening number to you know, start us off, and I kind of had a different theme than the rest of the record. And then it leads us to White Queen, As It Began. This was written all the way back in 1968 by May. It has acoustic parts in there. It starts off nice, light, and beautiful before we get into some heavier guitar work. This was inspired by The White Goddess by Robert Graves, which is a book that May was reading at the time. One portion in here has May playing an acoustic guitar, but it sounds like a sitar. I thought George Harrison was on this thing. So very interesting musically, and my favorite track on the entire record.
What I liked about this, I think is kind of cool, because White Queen, and then on the black side, the March of the Black Queen, and that is the inspiration for the title of the band, Queen, where Freddie Mercury got that from.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I didn't know why they were called Queen, but yeah, he drew a lot of inspiration from those tracks.
And then it's part of the same story, so this could either be the beginning of the story or it could be the end of the story on the other side. It fits either way.
Even though it's not a proper concept album, there is those loose themes that we were talking about that connect both sides and give you, you know, the listener, make them dig a little bit, and I thought that was neat. And you know, there is an underlying almost sadness in the track too when you look at the lyrics. It doesn't end up getting with the Queen at the end, but yeah, just a beautiful track, one of my favorites that I've heard from Queen. And then that'll take us to the fourth song,
Someday, One Day, and this is the first song that features May on lead vocals. He also plays some electric guitar and acoustic guitar on this as well.
Yeah, and essentially here, life didn't work out quite the way the protagonist here thought. So there's kind of a dark cloud hanging over, but hey, someday, one day, we all, I think, have that hinge of optimism.
Yes.
No matter, even if our circumstances suck, you know.
Well, and that's what I got from this, was just like hope. I mean, ultimately there's that hope that you can draw from, that maybe things aren't going so well right now, but eventually they'll be back on track.
Yeah, and I thought the vocal performance here was pretty spot on as well. And then we close out the A-side with The Loser in the End, and this is Roger Taylor's sole contribution on the record as a songwriter and lead singer, so he got to close out the A-side in style. And this is an interesting track because it's essentially talking about how whenever the son leaves the home, that the mother is the loser in the end, because you know, her baby boy's gone. And
so I could relate to this one a lot, because it gave me all the feels putting myself in that situation. He even calls her Ma, which Trey calls me that. Just envisioned him being like, you know, bye Ma, I'm on my way out.
Yeah.
So I really liked this song. It was one of my favorites on the whole album, actually.
I thought it was a pretty great track as well. And he even talks about like, hey, you better let him have your fun, because you were young not too long ago either. So I thought that was funny. And he ends the track noting that, hey, Ma's always going to be by your side, and ain't that the truth? We start the black side off with Ogre Battle, jumping right into this fantasy theme. This tells of an intense battle between ogres, and this was written by Mercury in '71, one of the earliest tracks to appear on their set list.
This was actually one of Queen's heaviest songs, with the guitar riff, thrash sound, those ogre-like screams throughout, or Mercury's hitting those high notes, which he's known to do. And then Roger Taylor has some kind of high screams in there as well.
And it's interesting at the start, because it's actually at the start of the song, it's the end of the song played in reverse. So again, Queen showing that even at the second album that they're already kind of stretching their, you know, studio capabilities, and they even waited to record this song even though they had written it, you know, earlier, until they had more studio freedom. So I enjoyed this one. I thought it was a good track to set the tone for the fantasy-like theme. And then we go into the next track, the FELLER'S Master Stroke. I gotta be honest, this would be at the bottom for me. I was not digging this at all.
Okay, well, so I thought that at first, but then I looked at the painting that goes with this. And so if you look at the painting while listening to the song, all the things that he describes are in that painting. And so you just had to look really closely, because there's all these fairies in there, and it is a very intricate painting that went along. I would encourage you to actually look at it and then listen to the song as well, and you might have a better feeling towards it if you had done that. I don't know if you pulled the painting up at all.
I did pull the painting up, and it still just didn't it didn't hit me. And what we're talking about is Mercury looked at this painting, Richard Dadd's the FELLER'S Master Stroke painting, and a bunch of the characters and stuff that's happening in the song is just taken directly from that painting. So I do give him artistic credit for that. It was impressive lyrically, just the way Mercury was weaving everything together there. It just wasn't my cup of tea.
All right, next up we have Nevermore, and this actually ends that medley. The first three songs on the black side basically go one into the other to the other to make this medley.
Piano just kind of is intricate, or in the backdrop of a lot of that.
So this is more of a ballad, and I love me a good ballad. So this one, actually, I really enjoyed this song, and it was very short, just over a minute. And the title Nevermore actually was inspired by Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, and where the Raven, you know, says nevermore to all of his questions. Will I ever see my lost love again? Nevermore. And so it had that sad, negative tone to it.
I'd agree. Loneliness was kind of abounding, and when you put it against that piano backing, it just set a melancholy mood. And then that'll take us into the most epic song on this record, and what I think is the most musically impressive, the March of the Black Queen. This has drawn comparisons to Bohemian Rhapsody and may even said so. This was written by Mercury with Mercury and Taylor on vocals. In 1974 interview, Mercury, who had been working on the song before Queen formed, said, "That song took me ages to complete. I wanted to give it everything, to be self-indulgent or whatever."
They didn't really play this live either, only parts of it.
They only were able to kind of pull out the verses because musically, like, there's a bunch of different time signatures and rhythms and whatnot, and it just made for a very unique listen. And this one really kept me on the edge of my seat because you just didn't know what was going to happen next due to all the shifts in tempo and the crazy, you know, guitar solos they were throwing at you from out of nowhere.
Right. So, and it's basically, I liked it because it was more of a narrative. I mean, telling that story. You got your evil queen, and
exactly.
what is she gonna do, and I guess her minions following her directives. And like what was it, faux fi or whatever?
Yeah, it's some definite, you know, fantasy, as we've been talking about. That's very apparent on this album, as Mercury was known to dabble in, especially in these early records.
Right, then that segues us right into the next song, Funny How Love Is. This was recorded in studio, and it was actually never sung live because of the high registers of Mercury's voice. Like, it was high.
Yeah, and for that reason, it was one of the standout, probably the best vocal performance, or one of, on this record. You know, Freddie has such a range. It's always a treat to see him really push himself, and he definitely did on this track. And it's interesting when you look at the lyrics, it's just talking about, you know, funny how love is this and that. And love is many different things to many different types of people in a variety of situations, and that song really just brought that forth. And our closing track is 7 Seas of RHYE. If you remember back to Queen 1, we had an instrumental, a short instrumental of this track as the closing track to the Queen debut album. This is the full-on song, and this was actually the first chart-topping song for Queen. It peaked all the way at number 10 in the UK, so definitely you can see on this album they're starting to at least gain a little bit of traction and popularity, a little precursor for what was to come. This was written primarily by Freddie, but may also contributed to the second Middle 8. This was a song that really persuaded Mercury to make Queen his full-time career due to the success that it had, and it ends with a crossfade with the instruments blending into the band singing, "I do like to be beside the seaside." Beautiful way to wrap up the record.
Yeah, and RHYE was a fantasy land that he had conjured up with his sister in Zanzibar, and it was recurring in a few other of his songs as well. I actually really like this one. It was one of my favorite songs on the whole album.
And that segues us perfectly into what were your favorite tracks.
All right, well, coming off of that, 7 Seas of RHYE was one of them. Nevermore, my ballad. And The Loser in the End was actually up there as well, Taylor's contribution.
I enjoyed all those. I'd also throw in my top 2, which was The White Queen, as well as The March of the Black Queen, just showing off a lot of what Queen is, you know, best at with those, you know, crazy musicianship type of things. So that'll take us into our overall score of the record. For me, I did enjoy this more than the debut album. I thought it brought some more, you know, complex musicianship to the table, as well as some interesting themes that were a little bit more coherent than that debut record. And so I'm going to be at a solid 8.0 on this out of 10, and I'm you know, looking forward to seeing how they continue to progress. What about you?
Right. Well, I also felt like that this was better than their debut, and I went with an 8.5 on this one.
Yeah, it's a very solid record from start to finish, and concise, 11 songs, and yeah, it's definitely a great record, and we would love to hear what you think of Queen 2 down in the comments below. Let us know your favorite track, and we will be sure to be back with Sheer Heart Attack soon, and you know, just keep rolling on through their discography, man. And Mom, appreciate you joining as always, and be sure to hit that big red subscribe button, y'all, if y'all enjoyed this video. We upload twice a week in a variety of genres, and until next time, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Happy listening, and we will see you next time.